listening to Steve Wark in the Morning Podcast. Visit us on our website at 670theq.com or join us on the Facebooks.
And we're back. Steve Wark in the Morning, about 26 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock. And in the studio with us right now is a gentleman that I have known of for the last 25 years. He's a rare treat because I should say he rarely comes out in the daytime, but he rarely comes out in the nighttime, too. Mr. Don Williams. Good morning, Don. How are you?
Morning, Steve. Nice to see you.
As you've gone through the years in politics and business here in Southern Nevada, you've met all the characters. You've heard and created a lot of the stories. Did you, growing up down here, did you ever think, geez, I wonder if somebody's going to write a book someday about everything? Because you hear so many stories. This is a great town for stories, isn't it?
Great. Absolutely great. In fact, I co-author books from the stories I tell around a case of beer.
Yeah, case of beer and a campfire. Yeah,
that's right. And the stories go on and on and on.
Well, the book that was recently published on Harry Reid by Daxton Brown was the author. We had him here on the show. Spent a lot of pages talking about your involvement with Harry Reid and a lot of different characters in Nevada politics over the last 30 or 40 years. And a lot of the stuff that was in there, it's first time that people had heard those stories. A lot of very, very interesting, I won't say allegations because they're not allegations, they're stories. I mean, it's stuff that happened. But for me, Don, I'd heard those stories over the years, and I was wondering, I wonder if anybody's ever going to talk about it. I wonder if Don Williams is ever going to talk about it, because oftentimes what happens in politics is you hear stuff. Some of those things you end up using in commercials against an opponent. Some you just stay away from. Some is urban myth, but your stories are true. I mean, you're polygraphed for a lot of the things that were talked about in that book.
And if I do any more of these stories, if I have direct knowledge of them, I'm going to take a polygraph for every chapter or every subject that I do. I have never seen that done. I'm going to be polygraphed for everything I write that I claim to have direct knowledge of, because the politicians won't be polygraphed. So, I mean, if anybody wants to argue with me, they can take a polygraph.
Sure. It keeps everybody on equal footing. Now, what made you decide to say, hey, this is the right time to tell the story? I mean, what's going on in your life?
I have been writing a novel. I got a call from a fellow by the name of Daxton Brown, whom I had never met, and he was writing a book about old Las Vegas and focusing on Harry Reid. And since I had years of interaction with Harry Reid, it was just kind of like talking about the old days. And,
sure.
I love to sit around and tell stories. So that's how it happened. I just started talking.
Well, Daxton Brown is probably one of those guys who over the years had heard a lot of the stories that he wanted to start trying to authenticate and put together that narrative. It's a fascinating book, and this is the year that everybody's talking about Harry Reid anyway, whether it's a swan song or whatever. Harry Reid is a remarkable character in Nevada politics. When was the first time you met Harry Reid?
I had never heard of Harry Reid. Wish to this day I hadn't. but
why? It makes for a great book. I don't see why you would regret it now.
Jimmy and Harry had gone to law school in Washington, D.C., and they had both worked on the Capitol Police. I notice Harry says he was a cop. Well, a cop in the Washington Police is a juice job where you get to sit at the end of the hall and do your homework for for law school. It's just like they say he's a boxer.
Yeah.
He was an amateur boxer with a jaw of clear crystal. And
that's why he went into politics.
Anyway, and they both were back in Washington with their wives. Mr. Bilbray knew Harry Reid. He says, well, maybe we can get some people together and raise some money for Harry Reid and help him. Jim Jr. said, well, maybe we can get some money together and get Don to go out there and take a look at his campaign and see what he can do. They raised some money. And
yeah, and not that we should sit around and forgive, old Las Vegas or old Nevada style politics, but there was old school way of doing stuff back then that would absolutely boggle the mind of the modern voter these days. Harry Reid knew perfectly well how his money was raised and accepted that money. Yeah. And that's kind of the gist of what a lot of the stories are is the funding of Harry Reid's political career.
Yes.
But when did he start showing kind of that ruthlessness that at what point could you tell that Harry Reid was a political animal, was pretty thirsty for it?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know that I knew for a long time. He had me just as fooled as everybody else, and since I didn't socialize with him or his friends or his family, he had little groups, little cadres of friends around that he would use for different reasons, and it was one of the smartest organizational plays I've ever seen made. So the left hand never knew what the right hand was doing.
Was that statewide race for lieutenant governor kind of the first big money race that Harry Reid found himself in?
Yes. I actually was never a fundraiser. I never got near the money, with the couple of exceptions that we're going to discuss. If you could raise the money, I get you the job.
Sure.
And but I didn't spend my time raising money or that's where all politicians, I don't care if they're the greatest guys in the world, all politicians start to slip into the criminal realm collecting money for campaigns.
Oh, absolutely. Was Harry Reid a man of means at all? I mean, in this first race, did he have a lot of his own money that he could begin to sink in his campaigns, or was he always dependent upon other people to help fund his races?
To my knowledge, he was greatly dependent upon other people.
Because now he's a multimillionaire. He's one of the 10th richest guys in the U.S. Senate. But he, his beginnings were fairly humble, and you ran him in this first statewide race. Is that when people started coming up to the fore and saying, "Hey, you know what? I want to help Harry. How much money can I give? How much?"
Well, Harry was very fortunate. He had become a member of a very good law firm in Las Vegas. How he got that job, I do not know. But they used to represent the majority of the insurance companies. I mean, he went right with the big money right away. How he got that job, I do not know.
There seemed to be people along the way that were always willing to take care of Harry Reid.
He really did seem to be able to get people to take him in out of the rain.
Right.
Well, for example, and working at this law firm represented Kerkorian when he first came to town. Well, in this situation, Kerkorian brought his older brother to town. His name was Nish Kerkorian. Harry was given the job of taking care of Nish, and as a result, and I would assume from doing a good job of taking care of Nish, it sort of brought him tangentially, he just sort of worked his way into the Kerkorian family. And if you see, Kerkorian, they're the largest donors to Reid. And
the MGM continues to be an unabashed huge donor.
You're listening to Steve Wark, the Morning Podcast. Visit us on our website at 670theq.com or join us on the Facebooks.